The film is a stand-up comedy special featuring comedian Jessica Kirson. The plot, or rather the structure of the performance, follows a series of interconnected comedic bits that draw heavily on Kirson's personal life and observational humor. The special begins with Kirson taking the stage to a standing ovation, expressing her gratitude with a mix of sincerity and self-deprecating humor. She immediately engages the audience by commenting on the number of gay men in the crowd, a running theme throughout the show, and asking if anyone came alone. This leads into her first bit about her own social anxiety and lifelong depression, which she comically illustrates with morbid childhood games like hospice care. A significant portion of the special is dedicated to a series of jokes about aging, sex, and the elderly. Kirson shares her experiences performing for senior citizens in Florida retirement communities. She describes the silence of her audiences, interrupted only by bodily functions, and recounts absurd interactions where audience members yell out things like clown or bingo. She then humorously speculates about what these elderly people might say during sex. This leads to a longer, more detailed segment where she reads from a fictional brochure for a senior living program on sex and intimacy in your elder years. The titles of the classes, such as Simple Stretches for Intimacy, How to Remember Your Partner's Name, and Deep Throating with Dementia, are designed to be increasingly absurd and shocking, playing on common stereotypes about aging. From there, Kirson transitions into more personal and self-deprecating material, often centered on her sexuality and her life as a lesbian. She has a lengthy, highly detailed bit about her old vibrator, which she describes in grotesque, exaggerated terms. She jokes that it's a fucking mess with missing parts and that she uses it for other purposes like an immersion blender for split pea soup. The humor is raw and physical, with Kirson miming her half-standing position while using the device, comparing herself to a baseball umpire calling strike at the moment of climax. This segment is a perfect example of her comedic style, taking an intimate personal topic and making it both relatable and ridiculously over the top. Another major theme is Kirson's past and present relationships. She jokes about having a threesome, which she describes with manic confusion due to her likening the experience to playing whack-a-mole with tits and holes. This bit ends with her waking up alone, covered in Cool Whip, and missing her watch. She also talks about her time at the University of Maryland when she was with men in blackouts, a comment that both humorously references her past and sets up a punchline about mistaking a man's anatomy for a huge clit. These jokes highlight her journey to accepting her identity and her ability to find humor in all of her experiences. The final and perhaps most cohesive thread of the special revolves around her family life as a lesbian mother. Kirson addresses common, often ignorant questions and stereotypes about gay parents. She sarcastically tells the audience that her 4 daughters were planned and that her condom broke with a woman. This leads to an extended bit about the agenda to make children gay. She jokes that she and other gay people are part of a secret network with Amber Alerts that go off when a straight child is nearby. With a mix of physical comedy and a mock dramatic musical sting, she describes how she and other gay people would use fag Newtons and long nets to make them gay within 5 minutes, transforming a boy who wants to play football into a child who wants to be on Broadway. The special concludes with a brief, affectionate moment where she reveals that her 3 youngest daughters are actually very girly, a final punchline that subverts the very stereotypes she's been building on throughout the show. The performance is a masterful blend of candid personal stories, edgy social commentary, and a unique self-deprecating comedic voice. The special is more than just a series of jokes. It is a carefully structured comedic narrative that offers a glimpse into Kirson's psyche. She consistently uses humor as a defense mechanism and a tool for self-reflection. Her jokes about her vibrator and her chaotic threesome are not just for shock value, they serve as a vulnerable admission of her self-described messiness and her journey toward self-acceptance. The raw, unfiltered nature of her comedy creates a strong connection with the audience, making them feel like they are in on the joke even when the humor is directed at herself. A recurring theme is the subversion of expectations. Kirson sets up typical comedic scenarios: a person at TSA, a performer for a senior audience, and then delivers an unexpected, often absurd punchline. This technique is most evident in her jokes about deep throating with dementia and her Amber Alerts. She takes a serious, often homophobic stereotype and exaggerates it to the point of ridiculousness, thus disarming its harmful intent. The humor lies in the audacity of her claims and the theatrical way she presents them. She doesn't just tell jokes, she performs them using sound effects, voices, and physical comedy to bring her wild ideas to life. The film is a stand-up comedy special featuring comedian Jessica Kirson, presented as a continuous performance rather than a traditional narrative. The plot follows a series of comedic bits that are loosely interconnected, building on recurring themes and her unique comedic persona. The special begins with Kirson on stage engaging with the audience through a mix of self-deprecation and honest, raw humor. She immediately dives into her struggles as a parent, complaining about her 4 daughters' lack of talent in their dance recital. She describes them as looking like wandering Jews and a methadone clinic, culminating in a joke about a child falling into the band and still taking a bow, which she responds to by throwing a brick. This bit establishes a core part of her on-stage character, a loving but brutally honest mother who is often exasperated by the realities of parenting. This leads into a segment on the unfiltered honesty of children. Kirson shares a story about her daughter walking in on her in the shower and being so disgusted by her body that she starts crying and says, "I don't want to look like you." Kirson's reaction, a mix of shock and humor, sets the tone for her family stories. Another bit involves her daughter pointing out an eyelash in her nostril. Kirson then transitions to the challenges of modern communication with her teenage daughter who only speaks in TikTok dances. She comically mimics her daughter's gestures and speech patterns, feeling so cringe and lost in translation. This leads into a story about her daughter's awkward teenage boyfriend Blake, who only communicates with grunts and groans, which drives Kirson to a frantic state. A significant portion of the special is dedicated to a more personal and vulnerable topic, her relationship with her parents. She talks about her father, a man who was both funny and tough with a memorable habit of ripping off his enormous toupee and throwing it when he got angry. This is a recurring visual gag throughout the story. She recounts a time he got upset over a spilled cup of water, reacting as if it were a catastrophic flood. This story serves as a setup for a later joke where she reveals she overcompensates with her own kids reacting to spilled water with exaggerated praise to avoid creating the same trauma she experienced. She even jokes about being overly encouraging when her daughter put her finger in a socket, claiming she herself had put a toaster in the bath earlier that day. This self-deprecating humor reveals her deepest anxieties and insecurities about being a parent. The next series of jokes focuses on Kirson's struggles with her body image and self-care. She talks about her failed attempts at dieting, comically admitting she lies to her Weight Watchers app and even straps her Fitbit onto her dog. The humor in this segment comes from her candid admission of self-sabotage and her ability to find comedy in her own failings. She recounts her experience at fat camp, sharing absurd and funny anecdotes about playing hide and seek and giving her first-hand job, which she describes with a mix of vivid and ridiculous details, like it feeling like kneading bread and warm butter coming out. The humor here is again physical, raw, and very specific. Kirson then takes the audience on a journey through her experience at a trauma center where she sought help for her issues with drugs and anxiety. She humorously describes a bizarre therapy session with a horse which she claims got a hard-on and turned her on. This absurd and surprising anecdote is a hallmark of her style. She also recounts a hilarious trip to Sephora where she seeks help from a bedazzled gay guy who gives her an honest, brutal assessment of her appearance. The special concludes with Kirson reflecting on her fans, her own anxiety, and her frustrations with modern-day communication and influencers. She ends the show with a surreal rapid-fire joke about a girl who speaks in TikTok-style cliches, leaving the audience with a final chaotic impression of her unique and unhinged comedic voice. The entire performance is a window into Kirson's world, where every insecurity, trauma, and mundane frustration is transformed into a source of outrageous laughter. The special is more than just a series of jokes, it is a carefully structured comedic narrative that offers a glimpse into Kirson's psyche. She consistently uses humor as a defense mechanism and a tool for self-reflection. Her jokes about her vibrator and her chaotic threesome are not just for shock value, they serve as a vulnerable admission of her self-described messiness and her journey toward self-acceptance. The raw, unfiltered nature of her comedy creates a strong connection with the audience, making them feel like they are in on the joke even when the humor is directed at herself. A recurring theme is the subversion of expectations. Kirson sets up typical comedic scenarios: a person at TSA, a performer for a senior audience, and then delivers an unexpected, often absurd punchline. This technique is most evident in her jokes about deep-throating with dementia and her Gamber alerts. She takes a serious, often homophobic stereotype and exaggerates it to the point of ridiculousness, thus disarming its harmful intent. The humor lies in the audacity of her claims and the theatrical way she presents them. She doesn't just tell jokes, she performs them using sound effects, voices, and physical comedy to bring her wild ideas to life. In the final moments of the special, Kirson brings her entire performance to a full circle. After building an elaborate, hilarious fantasy about her gay agenda to turn children into truck drivers, she offers a gentle, sweet revelation about her own daughters. This unexpected twist provides a moment of genuine warmth and affection, reminding the audience that beneath the raunchy, edgy persona is a person who loves her family. The special concludes on this heartfelt note, leaving the audience with a mix of laughter, surprise, and a deeper appreciation for Kirson's unique and honest comedic style. The entire special is a testament to Kirson's ability to mine her own vulnerabilities and experiences for comedy, creating a performance that is both hilarious and deeply personal. She navigates topics like family trauma, body image, sexuality, and sobriety with a fearlessness that allows her to connect with her audience on a visceral level. The performance is a masterclass in comedic storytelling, where every joke, no matter how outrageous, serves to build a fuller, more complex picture of the artist behind the microphone. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.